City Council meeting for Tuesday, March 3rd, 2013. We'll have call to order, please, by Susan.
I'll take the roll. Council members Franklin.
Here.
Osborne.
Here.
Pena.
Here.
Ratty.
Present.
Mayor Evans.
Present. Thank you. We had no closed session this afternoon, and if you would please start by joining us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would please stand. Mayor Pro Tem Christy Franklin will lead us in the pledge.
Please put your hand over your heart and let's say this Pledge of Allegiance to our beautiful flag. Begin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, we'll start public comment. This is public comment for matters that are not on the agenda. If you would like to address the council, please fill out an orange form like this, which are located in the back, and present it to our city clerk. We do have 2 requests to speak this evening, and I will call you up, and if you would like, please give us your name and address for the record, and we have about 3 minutes just so we can keep on schedule this afternoon. First speaker is Stephanie Kerr.
Good evening. Thanks for letting me speak today. I appreciate it. I attached what I'm going to read today to the comment form, as well as some pictures that I have taken regarding this issue. La Quinta Park, which is on Black Hawk Way, it's utilized daily by many of the North La Quinta community. Several choose the location and exercise throughout the day. As you know, there's an exercise track, there's exercise equipment. They walk their dogs, but this is also a hub for 2 schools, mainly La Quinta High School and John Glenn Middle School, where the students walk through the park to get to school on a daily basis. I walk this park daily, weekdays, and sometimes on the weekend. Recently, the park's become a hub of illegal drug use and sales, and over the past 3 months, a man of approximately 30 years of age, and I have pictures of him that we can go through, he arrives on a skateboard at about 7 a.m., sits under a tree for the entire day until he leaves, which is anywhere between 3 and 4 p.m. on a daily basis. Young men, only I haven't seen any young women. They flock to him in the morning before school. They stay and are truant during school, and they come throughout the day, kids who leave school early or just happen to be walking through the park. They smoke cigars and marijuana. They also hold in their hands pill bottles, and some of the young men take the pill bottles with them to school. So when they come early before the 7:40 school bell, they hold the pill bottles and skateboard off to school with them. Not only are the young men using illegal substances, they're smoking underage and drinking alcohol underage. And in particular, this one man is providing the marijuana and the pill bottles to these kids. Periodically, the same criminal activity moves into the water basin that's on Desert Stream Drive. That's where I live. And it's easy to move to the water basin because the wall that separates the basin and the park has no barrier. The height of the wall from the water basin side is the floor height of the park. So they just walk and then drop off, and you cannot see them anymore from the park side. So they are using the wall as a hiding barrier. In addition to alcohol and drugs, they are significant contributors to the graffiti that happens in the park and in the water basin. And I just took pictures of graffiti they left yesterday, this morning. Upon contacting the sheriff, I was told by a deputy that they have been called about this drug dealer several times, and in fact, they're called 2 to 3 times a day on some instances. However, they're not able to catch him in the act, and they haven't been able to find the substances on him by the time that they arrive. So they asked for community assistance, and that's how I came about taking some pictures. I brought a camera last Friday, took some pictures of the activity. However, I cannot get close enough. I do have a zoom lens, but they noticed me right away and were very aware of my presence. So after about an hour of my camera on them, they approached me, cursing me, threatening me, telling me to leave. They were very aggressive. Not the drug dealer, but the kids who were with him. So if you have the photos, you can look at them at your leisure, but I want to say that what the first photo, and I numbered them, shows the young men coming and going, and this drug dealer consistently sits in the chair and looks like he's doing nothing, but there is a jacket behind him, which comes into play later. In the second, third, and fourth picture, you'll see a young man in gray shorts and a black t-shirt. He leaves with his hands cupped and then turns away from the camera to put something away in his pocket. So they're once again very aware of who's watching them and the fact that my camera is on them. There's a young man who helps the drug dealer in a striped tank top and is constantly taking items from the jacket that's behind the man in the chair. In number 6, there's a kid with a brown hat, and he is lighting up a marijuana pipe. In number 7, there's a direct view of some of the young men and the dealer. And in number 8, you can see the young man in the striped tank top is always there, and he is there throughout the day. And number 9, a young blonde man named Robert, and I only know his name because they all greeted him when he arrived, comes. He then lights up a marijuana joint in number 10. And number 11, with the young men looking on, he decides to come over, and you can see he's giving me a finger, and not a pleasant finger, and he proceeded to scream expletives telling me to leave. And number 12, there's a young man in the Echo sweatshirt, and if you look closely at his hand, you can see a pill bottle. And this young man is present daily and is constantly truant, and he's the same young man who rode around the park screaming expletives at police officers when there was a fight in the park. This was about 3 weeks ago. And number 13 is a picture of the same boy from Friday. This is the child who had a cooler in the water basin yesterday, and where the graffiti, and they drink alcohol, they break the alcohol bottles, so there's a lot of glass, there's cigar trash, and there's food trash that go into the water basin when these kids are present. And once again, these are high school boys. As of this morning, I walked the park, and the drug dealer and the young men were still there. So we have spoken to Lieutenant Walton. My husband has a La Quinta Police Department. Today, in fact, he spoke to him, and it looks like they are going to be moving forward to try to remove this individual, but there's 2 issues that I want to address even after the drug dealer is removed. And one is the number of truant young adults that are allowed to congregate and use illegal drugs at the park. That didn't seem to be of concern to the deputies when I spoke to them. I offered them pictures, but they did not want them. My thought was that the school could maybe identify them, they could notify the parents could at least try to get their kids under control. But that's not something that they want to pursue. So I would like to try to figure out and make it aware with the city council on how to do something about the number of these truant children. Not really children, they're large kids threatening. When they're threatening you, it's like a grown man threatening you. Number 2, the ability of them to use that water basin as a hiding point is a real problem. They're able to just drop in, and you cannot see beyond that wall from the park unless their head pops over it. So they drop in, they throw their bikes over and drop in, they sit there, they drink, they smoke, they do drugs. It's a real problem. I've talked to the city engineer last year about possibly heightening that wall. He said that is not a possibility. So I am open to any other possibility to try to prevent this from ongoing. And that's all I have for you.
Thank you, Stephanie, and we appreciate you coming forward with this and engaging with being a concerned resident to want to make your community and your area on Desert Stream safe for everybody. And I believe Assistant Chief Walton is in the audience. David, do you want to come up and address what you can share with us from a law enforcement perspective? Sure. Again, we can't legislate good behavior on the parental side, but
Right, thank you.
Definitely another topic we can bring up with our school meeting tomorrow in terms of communication and awareness.
Sure.
Please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council, residents. So yes, we have a number of issues that occur at all the parks sporadically. When we talk about this particular issue, I talked with, I believe, Mr. Drew Kerr today, who had left a message for me. And the bottom line comes down to we are undertaking law enforcement surveillance of the park, and that's about the best I can explain to the public. Obviously I can't comment on juveniles who might be under suspicion of crime. That's a violation for us. And obviously I can't impugn somebody without sufficient evidence in public, so that's about all I can tell you.
And have you had an opportunity to view the pictures that were provided to us?
haven't,
Okay,
no.
so we can work with Susan and have you take a look at those and
Sure.
work with Stephanie for any follow-up. We definitely don't want to put you and compromise your safety in any way, but
Right.
we appreciate you
Right, well, and, part of,
providing those.
yes, part of law enforcement comes to the aspects of times, dates, locations, and then the calls themselves. I mean, certainly if a person's using or enjoying a public park and they're harassed or harangued in any way, we'd want a phone call right then and there. And hopefully that's occurring each and every time. And that way we can kind of deal with the issue at that time. Of course, the school district works well with our school resource officers. We have a school resource officer at the La Quinta High School. After hours of the day, the school resource officers make themselves available to the park to look for, before and after school, to look for truants and to kind of police them out of the park. The goal being education. We want to get them back over. If they're a repeat offender, we have alternative, the district has alternative disciplinary schooling and detention that takes place. Certainly, when we talk about drug dealing, the issue of marijuana, I can't really tell from a simple photo as to what the circumstances, and I'm not doubting that there's an issue. But certainly, as we recognize, marijuana all by itself, the possession of marijuana is something that concerns me, especially if it's within 1,000 yards of a school. And so we are going to take the right steps to police this issue and continue to police all of our parks.
We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Questions
Madam
or
Mayor?
comments? Yes.
Yes, if I can too. Also, the district attorney has taken up the issue of truancy in a big way too, so that might be another resource that might be available here, and especially maybe Mrs. Kerr could contact his office as well too.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if I could, when we did our walk through the park, I think that gentleman was there. There was a gentleman sitting by himself under a tree, and I think I saw him in that picture. And so he was there that Saturday morning around 9 o'clock when we were all taking a walk through the park.
Sure.
Yeah, we greatly appreciate it. And it's a real problem that you're going to have a small select few of these teenage kids create such a problem when we're trying as a city to do things for these kids and give these kids something to do on a healthy matter.
Right.
And I know the laws are challenging from a marijuana possession standpoint with the new Prop 47 and everything, but hopefully from a dealing standpoint, your men and women can get in there and stop this gentleman from dealing in that park.
Yeah, absolutely. In addition, when we talk about frequency of use of the park, I mean, I was there at 9:30 this morning driving through. I didn't see him at that time, not to say that he's not lurking about. Obviously, there's some bushes and foliage and some of the things, abutment pavements, and as I understand, some of the intelligence that was gathered from these pictures would maybe go a far way with our narcotics task force officer who we have, and that's what I explained to Mr.
Odds
Kerr.
are the resource officer at the high school knows those boys.
Absolutely.
I'm sure he does.
Absolutely.
So.
So are these photos I can take now? Or does anybody want these back, Ms.
Well,
Kerr?
they should go part of the record.
Oh,
So whatever Susan needs to do first.
sure. Okay.
I'll give you the originals after I make copies.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Just one comment, and I know you'll do this, you'll keep us
Please.
updated on, especially this particular problem that we have there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'd like to know how it turns out.
And yeah, if we can, I don't know, deploy the school resource officer randomly, if you're saying it's usually before or after school, if there's some way that heightens the frequency of that rotation in the park,
Sure.
without compromising the duties that are set before him or her during school hours, we'd appreciate that too.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, and Philip Betancourt. Name and address for the record again, please.
Thank you, Mayor Evans, and I'll be brief. Philip Betancourt, 79730 Rancho La Quinta Drive. one of this small delegation of planning commissioners who will have the privilege of attending this year's Planning Commissioners Institute in Orange County, along with our director this week, and I just want to let you know we are all grateful for the opportunity. In addition to doing that, we've arranged a walking tour of Cannery Lofts, which is an award-winning live-work loft, and our tour guide will be Mark Shattinger, a designer and landscape architect who lives and works in the village, and I think that this will be a great opportunity to feel the sort of the viscera of the place, see an old industrial village and what's taken place, and I think it's going to be some great live-work lessons.
Great.
Only one commissioner is not attending, Commissioner Fitzpatrick, who is staying here to help with the art festival and continue her good work, so we all work. And then finally, in a shameless bit of self-promotion, if you see a family of artists out there that look like me, it is my very talented nephew and cousin from Jeffrey's Glass of Laguna Beach. He's a talented glass blower, and they will be here this weekend, the entire Jeffrey's family. They've rented a home for a week to be a part of the festival, so it's going to be a great experience. In La Quinta? Absolutely, in La Quinta.
Had to ask.
Indian Wells is off limits to them.
Well, congratulations
We will look for your family.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. It's not easy getting that festival.
And before we continue, you notice Edie Hilton, our deputy city manager, is with us today instead of Frank Spevacek, our city manager. And I wanted to share with you, Frank is actually in Sacramento as we speak, defending the city in terms of a new trailer bill that's been proposed in front of the Department of Finance that will impact our redevelopment funds that we paid to the state that were on a loan basis that we were hoping to get back in increments over the next several years. And basically, as part of the governor's 2015-16 budget proposal, the Department of Finance, again, is proposing to change the rules regarding repaying this loan to the city, and it could reduce the $35 million to maybe $18 million that the city would be receiving, which is actually our money that we paid, or completely eliminate this repayment agreement that they gave us upon taking the $42 million a year or so ago. So this is part of that reinvestment in infrastructure, in workforce housing, and looking at the capital improvement things that we need to do in the city with the shortfall because of the redevelopment dissolution. So this is a new trailer bill that was, I feel like it's somewhat being snuck through the process. It could become effective as early as July 1st. It's not only impacting La Quinta, it's impacting several other cities that were in the redevelopment mode that have these similar repayment obligations based on the amount of, I call it ransom money, that was paid to the governor, and we hopefully will get some positive feedback on, he partnered with several cities in the League of California Cities, which we're a member of, to argue the point to say, you know, stop the take from the local level. Bill, from an attorney standpoint, anything you can add?
No, that was an excellent summary. The proposed language is not in a bill yet, but they were discussing it. I was actually listening to the audio in my office, and Frank did a very good job representing La Quinta's position. And there were many officials, city managers, finance directors, and mayors and council members who were there. And I think they did get the point to the members of the subcommittee that this would be a huge hit to the city. The Department of Finance was trying to present the bill as rather innocuous cleanup of what was always intended. When you read the proposed language, it's actually a substantive change to laws, and as far as La Quinta is concerned, would very substantively change what the deal was with the rules as they are now in the current law. So.
A very serious issue, because we fight every day to manage our expenses, bring revenue into the city, and try to stay one step ahead of what the state is just arbitrarily doing to local government within all of California. So big deal for us, and we sent him. He's obviously very well versed as our former redevelopment consultant, and he's been intimately involved in the dissolution process. And because of our meeting today, we didn't want to not be here to address you all, and felt that he was our best choice forward. So I'm glad to hear some positive feedback. We'll everybody's just say a prayer or something, hope for the best. Okay, with that, we'll move to confirmation of agenda. Any changes by staff?
We have no changes.
Thank you, and by council members.
No changes.
Okay, we'll move to announcements, presentations, and written communications. We have one. We're going to do a recognition of the Teen Community Emergency Responses Team, which is CERT. And I've got a few people that, let's see, I'm going to call up, or I'll come down to, share a little bit about what the Teen CERT program is. How many of you are CERT trained through your homeowners associations? Okay, thank you.
Somebody up there.
What's that?
Somebody has to raise their hand.
Exactly. Okay, the La Quinta High School Health Partnership Academy started one of only two in the valley, a Certified Emergency Response Team program. And they just started it in January and had 68 students complete the course. It's a 20-hour course, and basically it's training like adults get, like hospital, like emergency responders get, to be prepared in emergency. Oftentimes in a state of emergency or some type of disaster, the victim, him or herself, or the closest responders are the first ones to act. And having that knowledge of what to do and how to engage in helping the situation is critical. So knowing that we've got so many students, at our schools on a day-in, day-out basis, La Quinta High School took that initiative and wanted to create a CERT program. Things that they have learned, things like conducting light searches and rescues, setting up medical treatment areas, assisting the injured, extinguishing small fires. I know that was the funnest part of their training. Assisting emergency responders, reducing survivor stress, and identify and anticipating hazards. So with that, we have some recognition certificates. Number one, let's start with the folks that helped make this happen, and those are our emergency service coordinators from the Riverside County Fire and Office of Emergency Services. They were the instructors for the Teen CERT. Hopefully they're here today for the 68 students, and that's Eric Cadden and Jerry Hagan. Come on up, gentlemen. And accepting on behalf of the La Quinta High School Medical Health Academy is the, is Rebecca here? Yeah. Principal Rebecca Cook. And I think you've got students, so bring them all up. We've got certificates for you. Yes.
They did the work.
Okay, Eric. So you're going to some photo ops. Lots of stuff, right? Where are you based? In India. Okay, at the EOC? Yes. Okay. Jerry, okay. And Rebecca, we're going to have to merge forces here to get a group shot. How are you? Great to see you. Okay, this is on behalf of all of you. If you want to share a few words first, and ladies first.
I'm just really proud of these ladies and gentlemen in our entire Medical Health Academy sophomore class, 10th graders. These are 10th graders.
Great.
They're young people, so they'll be with us for a few years. And I'll be completely honest, full disclosure, I recently found out about this, not knowing what CERT was, just approving the information because our Medical Health Academy teacher can't be here today. So I was talking with these gentlemen before we came in today, and we're going to bring this to more of our academies. So we're very excited to hopefully add it into our Public Service Academy and continue this for the coming years. So we're very excited.
So how often will this be offered?
Well, probably annually. Is that,
okay.
do they
At
get
least annual?
annually?
Okay.
Because of how the system is put together and the grant funding, things that we have to do, so it does take a little bit to put these together. So annual is a good starting point.
Okay, great. And Tawny is our new emergency services coordinator for the city of La Quinta, who's playing photographer here. I'm sure you'll be engaged in part of this in the go-forward basis, right? And as Kathy Peterson's over the Health Partnership Academy, right?
Yes.
So you all are kind of like train the trainers on a smaller scale, right? Now that you've been through the course, you can assist some of your cohort students.
Right.
And anything else you want to share about the program? Why you took it to the schools?
It was by invitation.
Okay.
Apparently Ms. Peterson had been trying to get the program together for a while, and she reached out to the Office of Emergency Services, and we facilitated this for her.
Excellent. Yet just another way that we're bridging the gap between our safety of our residents and involvement in the community and engaging the students so they have an awareness of what needs to happen in the event we need extra help on deck. So congratulations. Let's give them another round of applause. Do you want to do a...
Absolutely.
Okay, let's squeeze. We're going to squeeze together.
And can I tweet you guys? Is anybody on like a non-photo, non-taken pictures?
Oh, yeah. Just pseudo consent. Yeah, I heard it.
Ready, guys? 1, 2, One more.
Just get on the plane.
Ready, 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Excellent. We love doing this stuff. Thank you. For those residents who haven't had an opportunity to go through the city's CERT program, I would encourage you to take the time to do that. Being in the healthcare industry, we've got lots of training in that front and very, very important.
And let me add,
Yes, please.
putting out the fire was the most.
You get to actually pass, pull, and sweep. Okay, with that, we will move on to the consent calendar.
Move to school consent calendar.
Okay. There's a second. There's a motion and second for consent calendar. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. And we'll move on to our business session. We have one item, approved professional services agreement with Signet Incorporated for information technology services. Chris, staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. In the last 2 years, the city has invested heavily in bringing about online new technology systems. This investment has dramatically changed our city's IT function. We moved from a traditional static silo type function and are now looking at a more dynamic and function that touches all aspects of the operation. In addition to that change, we now embrace the growing trends in public sector technology. So from now our major systems are connected to the cloud. We are deploying mobile solutions, so our inspectors are out in the field on mobile devices. So the complexity of our IT function has dramatically changed. So in looking at how we sustain this, how we build the capacity and continue to move in the right direction, staff engaged in the process of an RFP, reached out to various consultants, interviewed various vendors to seek out the expertise that the organization needs to go forward. In that process, we found a company called Signet that's based in Ontario, and their representatives are here as well with us today. So when we looked at the types of specialties we needed, from advanced programming to taking care of our existing house, so the standard maintenance, we're looking for a firm who could handle our needs from A to Z. So that gave us both the on-site attention that we needed, but also allowed us to draw upon the resources and connections that they have within their operation. In order to replicate something like that, you'd have to hire a small team of people in-house to perform that. But versus going that route, we looked at how we can best contract this service and bring forth that innovation into the organization. So with Signet, we really found a strategic partner. In the agreement that we have before you today, it looks heavily, the basis is looking at what are the service level standards and expectations, and we agreed upon here's the benchmarks to how we solve them. So if there's a different type of issue, we have a prescriptive way of solving that piece. In addition to having service level standards, we also included a customer satisfaction component in the agreement so that their performance and our monthly analysis is looked at, are the people we serve being happy? And if they're not, what are the changes that we need to make in place to fix that the month going forward? Or if everything's great, then we recognize that as well. So if those thresholds aren't met, we've put in a penalty in the agreement so that the city receives compensation back for failure to meet the standard level, the service level standards. So I mentioned that we do have, through this proposed agreement, the on-site plus access to their resources. Monthly reporting and analytics are going to be really key in looking at this agreement, and we're going to do so on a really active basis. The other big item is, right now there are things that we have to go out and buy, like hardware or our own software licenses. With this agreement and then managing our services, the contract comes with a lot of those aspects. So if there's something like antivirus software, we no longer have to procure that individually. It comes with our managed services agreement. So it allows us to shift our cost into a higher value item that gives us what we are used to taking care of, but a whole lot more. So I have a dual clicking system up here. In addition to what that comes in here, the organization is going to continue to change. Right now, if there's an issue, it's responded to. We're going to be moving into, should this be approved this evening, where everything gets a ticket. So we assign the ticket, and the idea behind that is SigmaNet will evaluate, okay, what's going on with that issue. So if a printer is malfunction, they look at that issue and see if it's a trend across the organization, and they look at, all right, how do we take these time-consuming tasks and automate them so that they don't take up as much resources, and then we can spend time on higher-level activities. Another big key to that automation is oftentimes the IT model is if it's broken, then resources go to it to fix it. Well, in addition to fixing the things that come up, with SigmaNet, we're able to utilize a more preventative approach so that we're seeking out to see if there's any issues or occurrences that happen on a regular basis based on our history, and we try to fix them in advance. So with that said, I'm recommending approval of this agreement this evening, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Questions of staff?
Yeah, I'll wait until are we going to make a presentation?
They're here available to make an introduction, but no presentation unless you
Okay.
want to.
Then I'll ask questions. Great. You mentioned hardware. They'll analyze our current hardware and make recommended changes that we need them, where it relates to computers, wireless equipment, things like that.
Absolutely.
Have they had a chance to go through our system?
Not yet. We're going to do that they've seen, as a part of our RFP, we provided them an overview of the types of systems we use, the types of devices are in place, so they have a snapshot. As we go into our onboarding process, they'll be able to look more thoroughly as to what's happening on the back end, and then figure out how it's configured and how we can optimize. So that will be a component.
You mentioned software as well, too. Who will own the software?
We're still, on certain aspects, we're the licensing agent for software, so on the larger Microsoft licensing, we'll retain that. But if there is items where we can procure through SigmaNet, for example, antivirus, they would be the technical owner, and we would have access to that service as a part of our agreement with them.
Okay.
So probably a hybrid scenario in a lot of cases.
And I know they're certified in a lot of the Microsoft components as well. What about iOS?
iOS, one of the biggest things is that they actually have an Apple systems engineer on staff with them, so
That's
we'll
great.
have a lot of capacity there to handle our Mac and Apple needs.
Okay, good. That's it for right now. Thank you.
Lee.
Thank you. Chris, one of the things that we had talked about a year ago or better was looking at providing Wi-Fi at all the city facilities. Has that discussion been made about potentially offering Wi-Fi at all city facilities?
Deputy City Manager Edie Hilton can weigh in here, but we do have Wi-Fi at all of our facilities. City Hall was the last one to come online, and believe it or not, we accomplished that about a year ago. What the city had was the last to come on with Wi-Fi.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, other than, we don't have it, do we have it at the parks?
In various areas of the parks, we do have areas where there's minor coverage, but we have not lit up all of our parks yet.
Okay.
Anything you want to add to that? Or?
No, Chris is correct. All of our city facilities, buildings, are Wi-Fi, and the last one to be done was the Wellness Center. Museum, library, and here. So, yes, those are all done, and I think we've been in discussion about some of the larger parks or parks that we have lots of activity. Particularly the campus has been the one under discussion.
Right.
Okay. And the last question, I mean, with, from a security standpoint, and the challenge that no system is completely secure.
Right.
In layman's terms, I'm not an expert, but in layman's terms, is there some description we can understand on what they're going to do to give us further protection so someone can't go in and steal information out of our system?
Perhaps this is a great segue, Paul, if you wouldn't mind interjecting. Going forward in the change management component, there won't be anything that SigmaNet will change or alter without the city's consent and approval.
Sure.
So we're going to maintain the integrity of our system. In terms of overarching threats of security, it's a continuing challenge. With his expertise, we'll be better equipped to handle those situations, both from a local piece, but we find that cloud security is becoming, and also the risks that our mobile devices pose, is more of where the resources are needed to make sure that we're safe. So I guess the short answer is, we'll now have a better access to resources to solve the issue as they come up, but
Nothing's foolproof.
a foolproof solution, I doubt there's one, but the idea is, when it does happen, we'll be able to resource to respond effectively.
Okay.
Close?
I don't know.
Yes, if you wouldn't mind, that would be great. And then to give you a chance to meet Paul and Zaina.
Good afternoon. I'm Paul Edge, and I'm the vice president that runs the managed services business, which is basically what we refer to as like hybrid outsourcing or selected outsourcing. So, and this is Zaina Amar. She's the account manager that's going to be supporting the city. And between Zaina and I, we work through about 50 cities in California. So going back to a couple of things that you had asked, obviously, to Chris's point, you know, the technology is one aspect of what we do in our lives every day around security. But really the greatest aspect of it is the awareness of individuals and really coming in there. So a lot of the stuff that we do in some of our other cities that we do, City of Lake Forest, City of Rancho Cucamonga, just to name a couple, we actually participate from an IT perspective with the city staff and the community to actually raise awareness to security and the things that you do. You know, we see it in the news almost daily, right? People post, I'm at the park every day. I like to, Stephanie came up earlier and talked about the folks dealing drugs in the park, right? The greatest weapon on that is that if that person is in the community and they're posting Facebook that they're at the park every day with their kids, and then they post again on Facebook and their home address is included, well, it's easy, right? So you have to be aware of what your surroundings are. You have to be aware of what's happening. And then if everybody saw a lot of the things that happened with Sony Pictures, and you know that was a real, you know, monetization loss, right? And then on the other side of it, we have, you know, personal lives that are affected. So how we approach this is we come into local governments, whether that's K through 12 and the school districts, or that is the city governments or county governments. We don't do anything at the state level. Obviously, you were talking about that early for a reason, so we try to stay local there. But ultimately, we're going to come in and always guide the city down the path of the latest and greatest of the technology that's out there, because as soon as the technology is launched, there's someone in Russia and China and a lot of places, and I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean that there is a full-blown business in a lot of these companies, and that's what they do, is hack all day, okay? And so we will develop plans around the cities through whether it's in the budget cycle, what technologies are the best, how do they protect the data of the city, the integrity of the city, and then basically providing that level of awareness and training. And I believe between the combo of those two, we get somewhere about 98%. There's I stand in front of CEOs of very large cities and CEOs of very large companies all over the U.S., and they want me to tell them that security is 100%. With the amount of technology we have out there, and if you're familiar with what's happening into a lot of the cities across the globe today called IoT, which is the Internet of Things, where they want to track everything from what's going on at the red light to the traffic to all that, just going to expose us all so much more. So in the general sense, to answer your question, we're always going to be leveraging what level of technology is in the market that best suits what's going to protect, you know, that's tailored for the local government versus what's tailored for a commercial customer. And then awareness of all of the social media, awareness of how these hacks happen, and the do's and don'ts, and have a constant refinement on that. 98% of the hacks happen because somebody leaves their computer open, they don't have a password, they use their address, they use their child's name, things like that. It's all very common in what that. So really raising that awareness is something we'll participate with you in as we go forward.
And how many staff do you guys have?
So we staff about 250 some odd full-time employees, whereas over 100 of those employees are in the technical IT engineering type of component. So whereas many companies can come in and say we have 300 employees and 250 are in sales. Right. So what I like to pride myself on is that I have half of the staff are in the operations aspect of it, to where they can come in and help actually get some things done for you and actually help you optimize your, you know, and innovate you know, the cities. I mean, Zane and I are working on a large project in Rancho Cucamonga where for the safety of a trail, they're putting wireless and sensors and things like that, so when people are walking up in the trails, if something happens up there, that they can police and fire, and we have it all connected back to the police and fire. So there's a lot of things that we do there.
Very good, thank you. Thank you very much.
Question?
Other questions, we'll
Yep,
pose it.
question. You mentioned you represent about 50 cities or so.
Correct.
Have you placed in protection so if somebody hacks into one city and understands the system, they can't get into some of the others?
Well, in the general sense, most cities are separate from their overall infrastructure. So, but if a city was hacked, we obviously would draw awareness to the other cities that, hey, this happened, this is what happened. And so we do share a lot where we can provide the, you know, public knowledge and things like that. Most people, honestly, that get hacked don't want anybody to know. It just happens, you know, Sony's a publicly traded company, and so when you're a stock market and you're buying their stock, they have to, you know, they have to provide that information. So, but absolutely, we share in that. We're a part of the League of Cities. We go to the conference every year. Last year in Long Beach, and so we deal with a lot of city, the mayors, the finance managers, all of that stuff. So not only do we come in and provide IT services, but we also like to come in and provide areas of innovation that we may see, you know, other cities or county governments that are doing things, and we bring that forward into our other cities just to do that, whether it be security or technology or all those other components.
Initially, you will conduct some sort of assessment, I imagine, when you come in, and you will give us ideas how to optimize security-wise or workflow-wise, right? You will conduct some sort of assessment before getting to work.
That's correct. So basically, Krista spoke about it earlier, but the first 30 days, we call this the kind of an onboarding process, which is really sort of a mini project that we're going to come in and we're going to run some very sophisticated tools, and we're going to find who's got their passwords that are not locked down, and we're going to find what users are doing certain things. And then also, we're going to look at the overall infrastructure and then kind of take a look at the infrastructure. You know, is it optimized? What configurations do we need to do on that? What's the security in it? What are some of the vulnerabilities? And basically what those tools do, we launch those tools, they run a couple of weeks, and then we put some people around the tools, and then we go and dissect everything, and then we come out with like this huge list of things. And then, you know, there's thousands of things that can be, you know, fixed every day in IT. I mean, but what we do is then we come back and say, these 30 things are extremely important, and we're going to go fix these things up front, and then these other things we need to kind of solve for over time because they're not quite as serious in nature, or maybe it's just something we need to put there. So we'll run a complete assessment, and then we'll take a remediation course around the list of what those issues may look like and become, and then we'll come in with a plan. And through the contract, not only will we be helping manage the city's IT, but we'll also be picking off all that low-hanging fruit that the assessment shows and actually solving for those items as we go forward.
And if I may ask, in regard to your other contracts with the other cities, you also have a clause of the 97% satisfaction rate?
Every city is different. Okay. Every contract is different. Chris wanted us to come in and make sure. I will tell you that when it comes to SigmaNet, our average satisfaction is around 96 to 97%. So we pride ourselves on what we do. We have a lot of people in our business, so from time to time we make a mistake just like any other human does, but when we get that level of information where we may not have had a satisfied end user or a satisfied staff here in the city, we'll rectify it. We will be transparent with the city in terms of what happens, and we'll take a course action to ensure that it doesn't happen going forward. But all cities require the survey. What their metrics are different. Some are a little bit looser than yours. But I would say traditionally, and really industry standards are looking somewhere between 94 to 96%. So Chris just raised the bar a little bit, and we're happy to raise the bar with Chris.
Great.
We support him on that. Right. Christy, anything?
Yes, and to the question that you were, or to the comment that you were making or question, How do we determine this 97%? You said a survey. Who's surveyed, and this is done once a month? Is this not a bit time consuming?
So basically, there's a couple of components when it comes to customer satisfaction, and for me, I've been doing this for a long time, actually in the service, I call it the services business, right? And I always equate to a restaurant mentality, right? You can go to Ruth Chris and they claim they have the greatest steaks in the world. But if you don't get great service, sometimes you don't leave there and think you had a great steak. So what we do is basically when we come into the city, we're going to sit down and draw up a customer sat survey that is less than 5 questions, and it takes less than 10 seconds to fill out, right? And then what ends up happening after every ticket, after we perform a ticket, and we actually, in our environment, have it so it cannot be manipulated. So the minute the technician or the engineer, or even myself, if I'm included in some consulting aspect of what's going on, finishes up work on behalf of the city, I have to close out what I was working with through the system, and then that then triggers an email direct to the individual that we were working on. So let's say we were working on your laptop, or we asked a question about iOS or your mobile device or your Mac computer, and if you felt like you got great service, then we rate it 1 through 5. You click 1 for bad, very bad, and 5 for great, and then that sums up a score, right, out of that 5, and then at the end of the month, we take all of those scores and we package those together, and we say, okay, we got 103 bad, 97 good, and we met our rating, right? If we're below that mark, then we would sit down with Chris and we'll say, okay, what do we need to do? Because in many aspects of it, we will come across, and I don't mean this in a negative sense whatsoever, there are people you can never make happy. But we will deal with it and try to figure out what can we change, or maybe how's our angle on that. So in general, everything we touch, we're going to issue a survey down to the staff and come back, and then also on the second component, if we're not dealing with the staff, but we're dealing with like the back-end infrastructure, maybe the plumbing aspect of IT, which is your servers, your network, and things like that, then Chris or Mason or someone to that degree would enter the survey on that part, and then we run an aggregate measurement on that.
One thing that Chris mentioned that I really like that you do, and that is if there is a problem, you don't just fix the problem, you look for what started the problem.
Right.
Because the other way, it's just a Band-Aid approach. You're not really fixing the problem, so I like that.
Yeah, so I speak to that for a couple of moments, because ultimately I always like to talk about IT really is to get to the level of when IT is truly providing the city or a business value, you have to get to the level that nobody ever calls. Unfortunately, sometimes that perception isn't good because nobody's calling. But it's sort of like an Allstate insurance, right? They want to come and sell you car insurance. And hopefully they optimize you as a driver, they give you a good rating, you do these things. And basically the same thing happens here. What we want to do is walk into environments, because I walk into environments every day, whether it's city government or whether it's commercial enterprise, and it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. So I can choose to make money off of just living in, total Band-Aids or break fix, and never make a profit on the money that I'm trying to sell to these customers, or I choose to go in and optimize it and become predictive to say, why is 10 people calling every day? Because they go home and they're trying to work from their home, and there's a remote access issue. Maybe I should fix that. And the less tickets that we provide, the better off the staff is, because then they can focus on what they're supposed to do, which is serving the community and the citizens of the community. And then I can maximize basically, the money that we're trying to make in our business, and also take that money that I maximize and reinvest it in the next city that I'm going after. So that's what we want to do. Is the goal isn't to be in a break fix mode. The goal is to be in more of a, there's always going to be break fix. It's no way out of it. But ultimately your goal is to look at the trends, the analytics, to see truly, what is happening today and why. It's no different than, let's say you guys are dealing with housing here, and the citizens all call in over one thing, and you just keep fixing the same little thing. Eventually you want to just fix the whole thing so the citizens don't call anymore. I look at it the same way, right? We want to become proactive and predictive, because then it takes that level. And then ultimately, through the past 20 years that I've been doing this, once you get that predictiveness going, that customer satisfaction just grows. Because typically, if I'm dealing with a problem where it's in a reactive state, you're already frustrated. You're dissatisfied before I even contact you, even though I may have helped you, right? So we want to get to that predictive level and really drive that from the back end analytics, and that's what Chris was referring to from a reporting perspective.
I like that.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you. And, you know, working for a corporation that did outsource IT some time ago, I think that transition to opening tickets and using the service desk will be an interesting one with the team here, because I'm sure right now they just call Mason if they have a problem, right? Or here, they'll be able to log tickets, you'll be able to track the frequency. It may be user error, and a lot of times, and that's the educational opportunity in the beginning until they get used to that.
Right.
And learn how to do some of that troubleshooting, but it really provides that trending. So I can see that starting big and hopefully, like you said, diminishing off as the service and education gets in place. So it's just another step in what we need to do to take this to a more efficient level with everything else that we're investing in the city.
Right.
And this is, I think, a great resource for us. So, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? On behalf of Sigmund and I would thank you very much for your consideration. And I was talking to Chris. We have a lot of opportunities here in Coachella Valley that we're actually working with other Desert Hot Springs, Palm Springs, the school district, and things like that. So our goal is to make you a reference someday. So thank you very much.
Sounds like a renewal negotiation process. Make note of that. With that, the matter is before the council.
I move approval of the professional services agreement with SigmaNet, Inc. for comprehensive information technology services.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Excellent. All right, we have one study session item, and the study session item is an update on crime trend and police service study relating to community input. Chris, let's go ahead and start off with you.
In January, you approved an agreement with Matrix Consulting to conduct a crime trend and police service study. A major component of that is the community input component, so that's the subject of today's study session. The two ways we're going about achieving community input is A, through an online survey, and we have some data for you on that. And then B, there's focus groups scheduled to take place next week. So to date, as of this morning, we've received 354 responses to our survey, and so there's a benchmark that we have to achieve about 450. Okay. So based upon the responses, a vast majority of those are La Quinta-based, as we could expect. And then, interestingly enough, we've had responses from across the country, ranging from parts of Canada all the way to New York. So the responses are coming through, and the ways that they're connecting with us are primarily through our city website, also through KSQ. So our PR efforts have been paying off in terms of the outreach there, in addition to Facebook. So we originally set a date for March 9th. We've extended the survey deadline in order to make sure that we maximize the opportunity for people to comment. The second section that we have here is focus groups. Matrix Consulting recommended that we take a smaller group-based approach versus a larger town hall setting, because it provides a better way to get feedback and have more candid conversation with the public. We have about 25 people registered for a variety of our focus groups next week, with the bulk of them looking to attend the first one. So,
what's your per session limit? Are you limiting then the number for each session?
We have about 60 folks that we can sit in there, but on the event system it shows 50, but we can adjust that pretty easily on the back end. So we're trying to get as many people in attendance there next week, and also the most people who can participate on the survey. So there's still opportunity, as I mentioned. The link is up and active for the survey. We're going to continue to do PR efforts in this next week, closing out to March 13th. In addition to that effort, we sent out invitations to community groups and stakeholders in the community for the upcoming focus groups. So we're trying to get the public notice out there, as well as do the direct personal contacts that we can fill the seats. The goal is to get as much feedback, because the consultant is near complete on doing the profile of our crime. They're now going to take and factor in the community's input, and then they'll couple that with the ultimate findings and analysis document that they'll present to us. So with that, I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Yes, John.
Question, Chris, were we able to put a link on the sheriff's website?
I'll check into that. I don't know if there's one immediately available, but we can definitely check into that.
Thanks.
Anybody else? No? I've heard some positive feedback. I've several friends that have taken the survey, and we've got some good play in the newspaper, and obviously social media is helping quite a bit. So if you all haven't taken the survey online, we encourage you to do so. Your input is valuable to us. Safety of the city is a priority for all of us, and your input is meaningful and will help Matrix and what we're trying to accomplish here.
If I also may say, if you can share it with people in your network, friends, family that live in La Quinta. Of course, you've seen through the map that some are coming from other places.
Right.
I've been sharing it through the Facebook several times, and in the past week alone, I attended 2 separate events put up by citizens, talking to the police, and Lieutenant Walton was out connecting with the community, letting them know what's going on and taking input. So there's really a lot going on right now, a lot of engagement as a result of this and as a result of the interest in public safety. So I think it's working out very well.
Great. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Chris. With that, we'll move on to reports and informational items. Christy, we'll start with you.
I have Sunline tomorrow and Mountains Conservancy next week.
Okay.
So I don't have anything to report right at the moment.
Robert?
Sure. Let's start with the meeting this morning with the chamber. It was a great meeting we had. City staff did a great job with the report, bringing them up to speed on several things that's going on, including status of Silver Rock and our commercial development update. We had the discussion, and we started 2 months ago, about the brand of the Taste of La Quinta and how to extend the brand past the one event and become a year-round brand. So what I brought up, first and foremost, Taste of La Quinta, one of my favorite events, March 14th. Here's the little pamphlets. They are out at the desk out there. You can pick them up on the way out. One of the ideas is, of course, to have, and there was an article in the USA Today about Scottsdale. They have guided Taste of Scottsdale tour, right? So one of the things is to put together a group and sell it to various hotels and bring people around. The other one is inspired by the Blackhawks, when we picked up at the Walk with the Mayor, and perhaps do something like this. Of course, this is very heavy sort of branding, but we can go to a lighter, beautiful, and have a restaurant provide, maybe there is a map and somebody has their own guided tour where they can go and take different experiences throughout the city. So we had a good conversation on that, and we'll follow up. I did share the article with them, and I will follow up with David, that is not here right now. But anyway, they brought up to speed about their membership. They are up to 425, which is an increase of 25 since the last meeting we had. Since July 14th, July 2014, they had new members 74, non-renewal 55, but that makes it a net gain of 19. So doing well. They give us an update on their overall event, of course, starting with the annual Taste of La Quinta, and obviously we have some ribbon cuttings coming up, and the next mixer is Wednesday, March 25th at La Rue Cafe Wine and Bar, 5:30 to 7:30. We also had a discussion about the idea that was has been floating around of some sort of incubator, right? Should we have an incubator in La Quinta, help startup, help entrepreneurial activities? And what was came across from the discussion we had with staff and the chamber to really take advantage of the lobby here, encourage people to come over here. They can discuss things with the chamber, maybe have I don't know how fast, maybe Chris can tell us how strong is our wireless. They were talking about a nice, strong hotspot so people can communicate, and that is a very interesting concept because they also have this relationship with SCORE, and so they already had some events out here, you know, kind of coffee and donuts, and more of a immediate feedback on their ideas, on their business plans, but also the opportunity, as Edie was pointing out, that they can walk down to our permit counter and start having some conversation with our city staff right after that. So that's something that we need to, I advise that we put a name to it, and we can articulate what this is, and also market it to soon to graduate from Cal State San Bernardino, or you know, some of the other schools that are down here in the valley. So give them a point of reference, and obviously once people start their business in one location, they have the tendency to stay. There's a certain emotional aspect that comes into play. So that's the exciting meeting I had this morning, and it was a great meeting. Good. Let's move to CVEP. I attended the board meeting at CVEP, and for the first time, the new tradition is to include one-page summary of their financials, which is wasn't done before. They claim this will bring transparency, and they will be able to keep a board member up to speed better of what's going on. Of course, we already discussed their budget shortfall that they have. There are some issues here on some of the saving they're incurring as a change of people leaving, or people not being renewed, or consultants not being rehired. Of course, they want to see increase of commitments from members. JFK Medical Center increased their contribution from $10,000 to $50,000.
5-0?
Yes, that's what it says.
It's going to hit my marketing budget. Okay.
No hoo-hoo?
Yeah, CEO.
So, and then one of the comments that was, sorry, Linda.
That's all right.
One of the comments they asked was, well, we seem to be Palm Springs Center because Palm Springs put up $560,000. So, you know, they're really helping along with this high hub that they have. And then, of course, you know, that is questionable if that's what they should be doing.
Well, they have Measure J.
Right.
That's it.
Well, no, the city of Palm Springs. I'm talking here CVEP. If you are a regional entity, you look at the region from one end to the other, right? So that's my concern there. So they will have more detailed financials and more developed out. And one of the things that I thought it was a little bit, okay, I understand what they're doing. They feature City of La Quinta in their report, basically saying, well, City of La Quinta put in 10 grand and they got all this tenfold return, and maybe true, maybe not, but the reality is that also the City of La Quinta did put up in, I believe it was 2013, I was sitting in one of those chairs, $40,000 for a GIS study that was supposed to lead to matching grants at the federal level, and I have no idea where that project is at. In all fairness.
Yeah, last I heard, that was supposed to come out back in December.
Right, the application.
Right. It was supposed to be in September, and then they put it back to December, and I haven't heard anything since that time.
Right.
So my point is La Quinta is pulling its own weight here, I believe. So another question that comes up again, this is the second time I see this was my second meeting, I see it again on the agenda. The East Valley High Hub is ready to go. And we only need money, right? I said, okay, well, I did raise my hand. They said, well, how much are you looking for? I mean, well, they say, we're looking for a commitment of 3 years, $175,000 per year.
$175,000? A year?
A year, plus the facility. And they need 5,000 to 7,000 square foot facility to operate this high hub.
So the county proposal is looking better.
Out of the blue, right? All right. But not 175 per city, I'm sorry. You have to understand it has to be a conglomerate of cities. So, okay, but still.
175,000 in total.
In total.
For all the members to contribute.
To all the members, yes.
For East Valley.
For East Valley.
Okay.
Right. Plus the facility. Somebody has to put up the 5,000 square foot facility. Okay, yes. Okay.
Any good?
Anything else?
Good good news is,
Any good news?
2 weeks.
I gave it to you in the previous report.
Yeah. 2 weeks? Tell us about the next meeting?
Yeah, about, and a couple of other things. They did suspend the publication of Tribe magazine. They need $50,000 to get it going again. They say it's a temporary suspension, but obviously they don't have the budget to operate it.
We did not join that, by the way.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to let you know that.
Thank you for the update. And obviously, there was some comments made about the executive committee looking at the bylaws right now. Perhaps the board would be smaller as far as voting rights and things of the nature. But it was overall a good meeting. There were some good questions brought forward. I think, again, when you say, well, we just have this ready, but we need the money, but we need the facility, it seems like there's not really a big plan in place to start with. So that pretty much sums it up, I think. And
If I can, in regards to CVAP,
Yeah, please.
I have been contacted by CVAP, and they have asked my firm to help them get their finances in order and help them create a more of a reporting standpoint for the board.
Right.
So I told them we'll be more than happy to after April 15th. But yeah, our firm will step in and help CVAP create a more financial reporting manner for the board and everybody, so they can see how things are going on a more up-to-date basis. So I'll let you know more about that.
Chairman, thank you. Chairman Axelrod made a comment about that there was an audit, and perhaps the audit should have been picking up things, right, of where they are. But the reality is, like, the auditing entity will look at what they are being given, right? So if we...
Well, the challenge, if I can, or the challenge with the audit report is that they combine the scholarship program with the operational program.
Right.
And the scholarship program is a very, very successful program and well-funded and has substantial reserves.
Well run.
So, yeah, and well-run. And so when you put that on top of the operational aspect, it really hides the deficiencies of the operational side.
Right.
And that last year was the first year they did that. And I brought that issue up, and they said, oh, no, it'll work better together. But one of my recommendations will to separate those again, so we have a better understanding of the financial position from the operational side, separate than the workforce excellence side.
Because mostly the money that comes in for that program comes from a single trust, and it's old money that's been around for a long time, but there's also a lot of requirements how they want them to run the program. So there's a lot of fiscal and discipline that has to go into that.
So if I may interject
Yes.
here, that trust that gives them X number of dollars per year.
Access College, yeah.
Gave a presentation about 2 years ago saying, you folks need to step up to the plate because we're going away. And so I think they only have like maybe one more year of that. So that all needs to be included in the thinking. And in terms of their budget, we were asked to approve a budget that had no line items, nothing. It was just a page, like that's not, we don't.
This one is more detailed probably.
Well, yes, it surely is. So, and the other thing is, if you could get, Robert, if you could get a report, we were supposed to, did we ever, well, Lee, did we ever see a report for our $40,000? What?
No, we have not.
Okay.
No, we
So
have
the
not.
status of the grant
We'll need to find out where that GIS report
Well, I
is.
wanted to have this conversation next time. I will bring it up and probably look at where we are, because I believe there were 5 entities, if I'm correct, that contributed the $40,000.
Right.
So we should be seeing some results. And,
Yeah, and we should have by now.
There-
It's a couple months late.
Our caveat to them was, we'll contribute the 40 provided everybody else kicks in. Everybody else didn't.
No, the city of Coachella stepped back.
And then
Right.
CVEP
Covered
went ahead
their-
and covered for it. So that wasn't part of what I was talking about, because that, again, is our money that we're putting in plus the 40.
We can't very well make any future investments until we know how
Right.
the last one went.
Okay.
We are hosting the next CVEP meeting.
Yes,
Here
yes,
on
we are.
Civic Center campus, March 18th.
Where's it
Yes, it would be right here.
Here in the courtyard. Lovely. Yes,
On the
staff's
18th?
working on that. Yes, the Wednesday morning. Yep.
Okay.
So we show
Fabulous.
more shop.
I have, bring a jacket. Yeah.
Bring a jacket and shop.
It'll be wonderful. John, anything to report?
No report, other than we did meet with the East Valley Coalition Group. Chris was working on that, there he is, and he may want to add something, but I know that we're working on some revisions to that. It's not going to be a JPA. I think we're looking at more of an MOU with some reporting requirements and some time-certain timelines. So I don't know where we are, Chris, Chris was tasked along with Indio and the county to come up with that MOU.
Staff from each agency met last week in Indio, and so we actually have the second meeting scheduled tomorrow morning here at La Quinta City Hall. So we're going to resume the conversations. We're still in the conversation of deliverables and metrics.
Good.
So we got to iron that out.
And who from CVEP is part of that group?
No one from CVEP. This is the East Valley Coalition, so it's Indio, Coachella County, and ourselves at this point.
Supervisor Benoit talked about a collaboration with
Right.
and non-duplication of efforts.
Correct.
So at some point, someone needs to be brought in from CVEP to either tell them thank you or this is what we need you to do on our behalf. So we'll have to take a look at that, because my understanding is we didn't want to duplicate this as this ask is being made. So as we
that
get
is
further
correct.
down the line and we have maybe a definitive component, that's the time that we need to probably bring in CVEP and let them know.
But I
the
think
direction.
our city's going to have to be a leader in creating those deliverables and really setting up the metrics that have been talked about and really
Understood.
putting that out for everyone to understand. But I think we're going to have to be a leader in putting that together.
Well, then maybe this is an opportunity then to help drive some of the challenges that are being faced here to help.
And some of the other cities too express that same interest as well too.
Right.
So I think we're kind of all on the same page I think, as
Right.
far as that goes.
Right.
So we're not just jumping into something else,
Okay.
for the sake of jumping in and trying to start something else that's new. We want to make sure that it's measurable, that it's effective, and that it will be well-run.
Right, okay. And are you gentlemen shopping for art this week?
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow, you'll be shopping for art?
Thursday.
Art in
Thursday.
public places?
Thursday, 10 o'clock here in the lobby, and off we
Council
go.
members Ratty and Pena were selected as an ad hoc committee to
This'll be
work with
interesting.
Edie and the
Oh,
Arts
guys.
Foundation to
Yeah.
find
This'll be
pieces that will
interesting.
help enhance
With
and
good
beautify
taste,
our
I might
city.
add.
Yes.
See what we get. Big rock.
Lee?
We'll rock it.
I have no reports to give at this time.
Okay, I do have a couple. I've got my iPad here because I wanted to quickly go over my first CVAG Executive Committee meeting. Basically, we selected and recommended chair and vice chair and decided to keep Jan Harnick, who's a council member in Palm Desert, who's been delegated by the mayor. The CVAG Executive Committee is typically made up of the mayors. She was chair going into that because it's a rotational city. They wanted to keep her the person versus the position in that capacity. And then Stan Henry, who's the new mayor of Cathedral City, serving as vice chair. This effort to keep them in place so that Stan, who's a new council member, can learn the ropes, so to speak, under Jan's leadership and with Tom Kirk as the CEO of CVAG for a period of time before Stan takes over, was a little bit of controversy amongst the group in terms of what the policy is on naming chairs and vice chairs. And there's an unspoken and unwritten practice that it rotates cities, which our former mayor, Don Adolph, was the CVAG chair a year or so ago, 2 years ago, and that would mean that La Quinta wouldn't get another option for another 10 years. So that isn't a written policy. They're revisiting that, and again, because there are cities that elect mayors versus rotate, it may not be in the CVAG's best interest, based on everything going on in that organization, to put someone brand new in that capacity just because it's that city's turn. So that's being looked at in the future. We did have our financial audit and statement and approved the report. We had an outstanding audit. So speaking of financials and transparencies, CVAG did a great job with all of their areas of auditing standards, and we passed that with no questions asked. We did a little bit of restructuring in terms of staff reorganization because of Aurora Wilson retiring from her position. We were able to actually bring on 2 people for the price of 1, and we were able to reallocate positions to meet our needs with the projects going forward. So that was positive change. And then we reviewed a TUMP report for a 5-year report. I guess the next big thing would be, you had discussed the CV Link spurs at the last meeting, and the executive committee approved proceeding with the Link Spur project and how the CV Link project could be, there's some different outlets going from high schools, different areas throughout the valley, and La Quinta's impacted positively in a couple
Good.
ways. So
Fantastic.
that seems to be moving forward in terms of application to secure funding for that initial planning process for that funding. So that's our CVAG. I reported on Conservation Commission E&E last meeting, and let's see, I think the big deal that happened here is concerning the Greater Palm Springs Convention and Visitors Bureau. So this is the Palm Springs Oasis tourism industry, and I serve as chair for the Joint Powers Authority Board of Directors, and La Quinta, our La Quinta Resort, was the host of the Outlook Conference for Visit California. So every tourism employee that promotes the state of California, within the state of California, within other states that help try to get tourism here to California, and then probably 20 international locations that the state of California has across the globe, converged upon La Quinta, 550 people for nearly a week to look at the convention visitors sector and promoting tourism. And as you read in the Desert Sun today, the Palm Springs Airport flight routes are up and working on occupancy on group sales and convention sales. I had the opportunity to address the group and welcome them to the fine city of La Quinta, and it was a spectacular day in La Quinta weather-wise. It was last Monday, and subsequently was able to attend a few of their receptions and events, and it was just over the top. Our local CVB group did an outstanding job delivering all that, not only the Coachella Valley, but the place was swarming with how fabulous La Quinta was. And I'd say out of the 550 people, when I asked who had never been to La Quinta, probably 350 hands went up in the air. So they will be back. They have already told their CEO that they would like to make this either their annual or every other year destination for their conference. And as a state, they approved their referendum and basically doubled the amount of marketing dollars statewide. And I'd say Mexico and China are going to be the huge areas of focus for us in terms of bringing tourism in statewide. So just really just makes me proud that we have all that we have here in the city, and that people who had been to Palm Springs perhaps, but not to our gym, got to experience that. So just wonderful. Scott White and his team just continue to amaze me on what they're trying to do to promote this destination. So,
How well they've done.
and how well they've done.
a great job.
And he said his goal is we're going to be doubling our budget soon too. So and that's with TOT intake, not contribution from the city's bid. So that's great. Oh, okay, with that, we'll move on to departmental reports. I do have one comment to make on the community services, and that is regards to the report on the LINKS program, which is the Leadership, Investment, and Knowledge Sharing. Basically, as we have been redefining our city government, we've gone through several changes with the staff. We've gone through class and comp. We're now doing pay for performance. Our next step is looking at how do we look at succession planning and promotion opportunities within our ranks, and then bringing in that qualified staff as that opportunity. And so we're embarking upon LINKS, the Leadership, Investment, and Knowledge Sharing, and identifying, the staff's identifying some of those non-director positions that are up-and-comers in terms of potential for leadership positions as our staff retires. So I think this is just another step in terms of our advancement, making sure we continue to have that quality, competent staff as we're increasing technology and infrastructure and growing our community. So glad to see that coming forward.
I think Frank taught this. Does he do that?
Does he?
Frank did the first session. Each director's going to do a session, and
excellent.
Our HR manager's helping to coordinate along with the team that's doing it.
Excellent, excellent. With that, we'll move to mayor and council member items.
Before we do that,
yes,
can we talk about the iPads, council pads?
Sure.
Frank said that if there was a consensus that we go this route, that there are places for our current iPads within the staff. And the current iPad that we have does not have the ability for us to add service to it. So he would take our iPads and give them to staff, they're needed, and then we would get the ones that do have the ability to add service. I personally would like to do that. I don't mind adding it to my Verizon account or whatever. But he needs a consensus to do that.
Do we want to talk about the increase in fees or?
Well, personally, I like the increase in fees. You know, with me, I don't think I've ever been in a place that didn't have wireless or access to it, or else you could use your phone as a hotspot. So we could certainly add that onto the phone as well too. but that's me, so.
But all they're doing is adding our stipend. We have to put it on our own service.
Right,
Okay.
right. But you have that. I mean, on your phone, most people have,
Yeah, I do, but
Yeah.
I'd like it on my iPad.
okay.
So are you saying that it doesn't matter to you?
Doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
I'm fine with it the way it is.
I'm in agreement with Christie. We should.
And mine's working now, so, well, I can't necessarily sit out in my car and do emails. That's a problem unless I connect, do the phone component. There's still some inconvenience, but the technical components are working now, which is
Well, definitely
a little less frustrating.
will give more mobility and workflow for all of us as we communicate with city staff, so potentially, let's do it.
Okay.
All right.
So we have consensus?
Yep, let's move forward.
All right.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments on reports? So mayor and council member items, anything else, Christie?
I do have something.
Yes.
Let's see how to say this. Revenue enhancement. As a council, we didn't have the votes to do this in the last election. General election has to be in the general election. With this particular revenue enhancement I'm talking about, i.e. sales tax. So we made a statement as a council that we would wait until the next general election, which will be 2016. If we decide to put that on the ballot, then once it's on the ballot, we all have to shut up.
Right.
The city can't do anything. So we're looking at only a little bit over a year to educate the public. And we had said that we had talked about involving our boards and commissions in helping this education process. And I'd like to know how we're going to do that and when we're going to start. I'm not saying everybody has to agree to it, but somehow I kind of am saying that, but we can't drag our feet anymore if we're going to do this.
So I would suggest that we agendize a study session to revisit it. We're in the budgeting process with the outcome of potentially what might be happening in Sacramento.
Perfect.
Knowing that we've got capital improvement projects, we prioritize the big rocks that mainly include infrastructure, storm drains, flood controls, things like that. It might be a good time now that we've got a new complement to look at that progression of need for revenue and what the trends are looking like from sales tax and TOT, and go from there.
I think that's a great idea, and with Frank up in Sacramento right now, I think he'll come back with a better understanding of what more money the state is going to steal from our city. So we'll have that understanding going, into the future with what funding will not be available because of Sacramento.
And steal is the right word.
Yes, it is.
Steal,
And what they're attempting to do right now, that's only the tip of the iceberg. They can open up anything else they want, so we've really got to cover ourselves.
Again, it goes down, and Councilmember Osborne brought it up a couple of times, that other agencies are looking at tackle on, a 0.25% or whatever.
Right.
And the more agency comes into play, the least amount of opportunities to pass along will be available to us. So we need to kind of prioritize, and I had the discussion yesterday with a group. They invited me to talk to them about the necessity to start talking now about it and plan.
Educational practice.
All right, so study session, we're good for that?
Study session.
Sounds good.
That'd be good.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, I had one too. The walk with mayor, great idea, I think, too. But I think that from a notice requirement, it's kind of a little awkward if we have 3 council members show up, and then, the 2 that aren't there, whoever's not there is deemed to have missed a meeting. I wonder if we could maybe rotate council members with walking with mayor, and maybe we'd rotate 1 council person each, and that way we don't have to worry about noticing or anything like that. I kind of wanted to bring it up, because I think it gets a little awkward when you have a mobile meeting that it's kind of like a study session, but it really isn't a meeting type thing.
Well, we had to notice the last meeting because there were 3 of us.
Correct.
So to comply, and it was open agenda, so there weren't decision-making items.
Right, I
It was
understand
definitely
that.
informational and feedback oriented. I was going to bring that up in my comments in terms of who wants to join me on the next walk. We will be circling North La Quinta again, starting at Colonel Mitchell Page and ending there, because at the end of that walk, we'll be starting a little earlier too, 7 o'clock, is the La Quinta Police Safety Fair at Colonel Mitchell Page, which runs from 9 to 1. And that's a free safety fair as well, and we thought that'd be a great way that if our community's out there already doing health and wellness and interaction, that they also have that chance to learn about the safety of what our police services offers here, and the car seat safety will be there, Desert Recreation District will be there, so it'll be a nice destination with something else to do. So we figured if we had an idea of if more than 3 would know, we could notice it in advance versus having one. So it's up to you based on schedules.
I'm available, but if I have to sit it out, I'll be happy to.
Well, and we could show up to the fair, correct?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd hate to hinder the opportunity for
Right.
council members to interact, though, with the folks that
No,
come out.
and that's the touchy part of it too, but I think that, trying to notice it from, and saying somebody missed a meeting or,
But if it was a walk, is that?
Yeah.
Well, I have got plenty to do on Saturday, March 14th. But
There's a few things going on that day.
And obviously Colonel Mitchell Page is 2 blocks from my home, but if other council members want to be there, that's fine, that's fine. I mean, it was a great walk we had from the park.
It was great.
Fantastic
Well,
walk.
why don't we
Great
notice this
interaction.
one then, and then we'll decide later on if we want to rotate, or something like that.
I'm comfortable with that. Yeah, again, I would encourage, I welcome everyone. We-
Okay.
Okay. so
Okay,
hopefully
cool.
We'll notice it. All right. What else?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay, a couple of comments. First and foremost, Black History Month. Kudos to the city staff, Tustin, for putting it all together, along with the legendary Eddie and his wife Connie. They did a tremendous job. Was a high-quality event, packed, and my God, what an evening. It was really a great evening that we had. So again, thank you to our city staff for putting it all together and helping this event along. Now in the 6th year, I believe it was. Okay, so let's hope that it keeps going. In the walk with the mayor, by the way, I learned that we have a lot of rosemary planted up.
Yes, we do
in
have a
the
lot of
northern
rosemary.
Parkways. I never noticed it
Frozen
before,
lantana.
but yeah. It was a pleasure to attend the ribbon cutting of the palms.
Yes.
Tremendous facility. What I was really impressed by was the open spaces on the common areas, right? And the flow to invite people to mingle and spend time together. Tremendous facility.
Seemed affordable, very affordable as well.
And affordable.
My mother-in-law's moving in.
Yeah.
Great.
And
In the process now.
I did find a friend there, so she has just moved in 2 weeks before. And yeah, the Ribbies.
I saw her there too.
Yeah,
She
she's,
gave
and
me
I'm
a hug.
happy,
Yeah.
yeah.
She's happy with it.
Yeah, she is.
There were a number of people there that moved in from other cities in our valley that just wanted something new and different and more affordable, so.
Fantastic.
And then, the kind of holistic approach and, comprehensive package they have, a tremendous organization, great addition to our community.
Right.
And just a quick comment about this morning, reading at the library, the Read Across America event. There you go.
Dr. Seuss Day at the library. It was his
Dr. Seuss
100th
Day.
birthday yesterday.
That's right.
True enough, and the mayor and I got to read a couple of books, very tough audience, and off we go.
1 to 4-year-olds are a tough audience. They're
You never know.
scatter.
You don't know. So it was great. So that's my comments.
Very good. Lee.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to ask Lieutenant Walton to come up, if you would, sir. One of the questions I want to talk about is, with traffic issues and the amount of people running red lights and running stop signs. Just the other day when I was turning left onto Miles, 2 cars ran the stoplight and one almost hit me as I was turning left on a green light. And my first question is, what is the fine when people are running red lights or running stop signs?
It's set by the court, but roughly $241.
That's all.
Right.
And if someone runs a red light or a stop sign and causes an accident and physical harm to somebody else, is there an increase in that fine?
No. The fine violation amount stays the same. However, the La Quinta Police Traffic Services have engaged in a strategy in which when they go to the scene of a collision, because of their training, which is at the higher end or spectrum, they will tend to issue a citation at the scene of the collision to the driver who was found as the primary cause of the collision for, say, running a red light or whatnot. And a lot of jurisdictions don't do that. They simply go out and they take the collision report and they sweep up the street, and two people go in two different directions and exchange the information. So with the La Quinta Police Traffic Services, they've been for about 5 years now issuing those primary cause collision citations at the scenes of those collisions.
And how much are those citations?
Set by the court, but similarly, it's the fine amounts from anywhere from $241 to they can reach $300, $400, $500.
I mean, a friend of our family riding a motorcycle was just struck in an intersection with someone running a stop sign.
Right.
They ran right through the stop sign and hit the young man, and he was in the hospital with punctured lung and a number of other problems and in coma and whatnot. He should be okay at the end of the day. But we all see so many people running red lights in this town. It's just ridiculous. And it's a challenge to me to see our council mandated to raise speed limits, but we can do nothing regarding the fines for those that run red lights? And that's a question.
Right, yes. Really the courts, the superior courts are where you're taken to provide due process for your violation. The judge that benches the matter, whether it be a court commissioner or the judge himself, they have a scale of fines, a fee of fines that they issue per that violation. However, as you know, Department of Motor Vehicles is separate entity as a civil agency, and they can also impose, for example, a red light citation that you're convicted of becomes a hazardous point count against your driving record. If you're not eligible for traffic school, and that's at the discretion of the court, if you're not eligible for traffic school, that remains on your record for 3 to 5 years, and as such, your insurance rates go up in conjunction with that for that period of time. And in addition, 3 hazardous point counts within 1 year or 12 months is a negligent operator, and DMV will seize your license for a year.
Would we be able to approach the court to ask them to increase the fines for those that run red lights or stop signs?
It really is a matter of the state, because the state runs the court system. We certainly protect the court system as a county sheriff's agency, and as a police department, we see our matters held there. But there's not a lot of push, if you will, that we can say that we want to see an increased fine amount to the court. I mean, I can look into it for certain and get back with you, but those are usually.
I think greater enforcement, just as
Yeah,
we
maybe
can.
it's just greater enforcement. I
On
don't
the
know.
busy
And
weekends.
your officers do a great job, but it's just alarming to see so many people run red lights. I mean, it's not like they go in at a yellow. I mean, it's blatant running red lights or running stop signs with total disregard for those around. And I'm sure many of us have set at a stoplight, waiting for all those running red lights to get through before we can pass on a green.
Right.
Every day.
Well,
and so it's really concerning, the danger that's caused.
Well, in a year ago, we put in an additional, what they call red light actuation terminals, RAT lights, which allows the officers to conduct more enforcement at the locations of intersections that are signalized, and it provides the condition of the light to the officer on the other side of the intersection. So he's in a safe position to view what's going on, but he may not physically be able to see the red light. He has a terminal that tells him what the condition is. And as such, 27% more red light citations have been issued in the last 12 months in the city of La Quinta.
Okay.
Mainly in Washington 111.
Well, at least if there's anything at all we can do for those that run red lights and create bodily harm to somebody else, then there needs to be substantial fines and penalties to those, almost like a DUI.
Right.
Because it's totally recklessness, as a DUI would be to those that cause harm because of it. So we'd appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Dave, there was at Washington 111, was just people were running that all the time, and I know, I guess it was maybe like a year and a half or so ago, there's a motorcycle policeman that sat on the corner and issued citations, and if you go that same route every day, then you see him every day, and I think it really, really helped a lot with the highway, but it's the presence of, of someone there.
Send
Maybe
Kevin
maybe
back
we
out there
could
for a while.
do that on some of our bigger intersections.
Right, yes, absolutely. And the motor officers that we have, I mean, we were very fortunate to have Chris Frederick, our sergeant, who was motor trained and was a motor in the city of La Quinta, who's taken over the unit, and his experience and expertise as a motor qualified officer, it kind of plussed us up, if you will, by him going out and riding himself. So as your dedicated sergeant in the administrative slot, he will go out on a motorcycle himself and write citations.
Well, with the increase of activities and events coming forward, I know the fly was up here, so I'm sorry that you have it, but I'm glad it's away from us. With the increase of events coming forward, I think just that extra protection, I mean, you guys do a great job, but you're right, we've got to.
Yeah, it's very concerning. But it's interesting how we are mandated to raise speed limits, and even though we don't want to, but we have no rights whatsoever in regards to these penalties and fines for those that intentionally break the law.
What is the overall perception about the intersection camera? I mean, you know.
It seemed that there are many lawsuits against the municipalities on these, and so instead of dealing with the legal challenges, they just took them out.
Right. We need Frederick and Moore, his team out there.
I want to kill this poor guy, but I don't want PETA all over me.
Be careful.
Any other questions for Dave?
No, that's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Lieutenant.
Okay. All right, without further ado, we'll move on to a public hearing. We have one this evening, and that is the request to table public hearing for an environmental assessment, a general plan amendment, change of zone, specific plan amendment, site development permit, and tentative track map to allow the development of 82 single-family homes on 20.8 acres of land located at the northwest corner of Jefferson Street and Avenue 52 for Beazer Homes. So we continued, and they want to continue.
Honorable Mayor, council members, as you'll recall, this matter was introduced to you back on January 3rd. And just as a recap, the subject property represents just under 21 acres at the northwest corner of Avenue 52 and Jefferson. It was previously approved in 2004 for 250 condominium units. The current development proposal represents 82 single-family homes. There are several entitlement items for your consideration, including a general plan amendment, change of zoning, specific plan amendment, site development permit, as well as a tentative track map. The matter was continued to date certain to tonight based on concerns that were raised during the January 3rd meeting. The applicant has, since that time, been considering those concerns and has made some design changes, but they're not at a point yet where they formally have submitted any revised drawings to us for consideration. Obviously, we need a time period to process those new drawings as well. So the applicant has made a request to table this matter. By tabling it would require new notification, new public hearing notification to be conducted. And they are identifying, if everything goes well, that would likely be right around June when that hearing could occur. But with that, the applicant is in the audience tonight, and I know that they would like to have an opportunity to address you and dialogue with you about this. So with that, we'll conclude the staff report, and we'll be here happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Les? No. Okay, at this time, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. And we have two requests to speak. First, we'll bring up Monica Altreras. Welcome back, Monica.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening, or good afternoon still. I'm not quite certain. I recognize I only have 3 minutes, and so I don't want to waste anyone's time. I have had an opportunity to sit down or at least have some interactions with all of you and have received some feedback. What I did do today is I brought a copy of the previously submitted site plan, just so you can have a quick look at what we previously discussed and then what I have now presented. And the site plan that I'm now presenting to you is based on feedback received from staff and some city council members. The fire department recently provided a comment in regard to flag lot concerns. So that was the route to the most recent revision. And so really what my 3-minute objective is, if you will, is to just confirm that I'm on the right path and to seek collective feedback this time around and confirm that our site layout is acceptable. Because if it is, then I can pull the design trigger with my professional consultants, which would get us into the technical review element and get me back here. We would prefer late May, the May 19th meeting, but just considering review cycles and design time, it may push us into the first June meeting. So if I may approach.
Sure. If you want to give them to Susan, she'll pass them out quickly to us. And the collective feedback that we provided at the initial public hearing, which was continued by council, was primarily associated with some of the architectural components, some of the landscape designs, the setbacks, the flow of some of the flag lots because of taking trash to long distances.
Right, so
and the overall aesthetics in terms of its relative proximity to what will be our premier destination at Silver Rock.
That's right. So the folded site plan, it's titled Previously Submitted Site Plan, and there was some voiced concerns in regard to the northern portion of the track, which has those alley-loaded lots, and also the setbacks. The second illustration is the new site layout, and it does present a single curve, if you will, a single perimeter, eliminates the alley loaded. There's no flag lot conditions. We were able to maintain our 82 count of homes, in addition to providing additional parking. So there's a cul-de-sac that was provided for additional parking on both realms of the rec building, so this could serve as additional parking, which was another voice concern that we received back in January. The second map is an aerial exhibit, which basically integrates the Silver Rock element of our community and the existing areas. Just wanted to provide this image as effort of showing, that this type of layout is in the area already and could potentially be viewed as a continuation of the Citrus Club that we are currently negotiating with them to access their amenities.
Well, I do like the aesthetic enhancements that have been included based on the feedback and some of what they verbally described, but we couldn't visually see on the specific drawings. Questions of Monica regarding?
One quick question, if I may.
Yes, please.
Monica, I noticed that, I think it's still here, but is it Lot M, the emergency fire access onto Jefferson?
Yes.
That's still there?
It is, sir.
Okay, I just didn't
Our
see
site
where-
plan, study C2, it calls it out as Lot M. That will be emergency access. Lot L is the access, or the anticipated access to the Citrus Club. And then Lot H would be the access to the basin.
Okay, thanks. I like it. I think you've done a good job.
Thank you.
And so the specific changes on setbacks went from what to what with this design change?
The
'Cause I don't
setbacks,
see that they
what
did.
we were able to do was reduce the footprint slightly. I'm talking a couple of feet, just to try and pick up an additional side yard. So we were originally proposing 10 feet. Now our average is 13, closer to 14 feet side yards.
The flow's much better.
By reducing the footprint of the home, it also allowed us to stagger the lots, so it did have a variation as well.
Right. Yes, please, Lee.
We talked a little bit in regarding the planning commission comments and the eaves, and making those 18-inch eaves and whatnot. I don't see that on these pictures. I know you and I talked about it a little bit when we met, but I don't see where they've made those changes on all of these.
These are just conceptual plans, just to have dialogue. We intend to provide the 18-inch overhangs as we had committed to Planning Commission. In addition to plotting our single stories at the perimeter of our track, so to speak, so the northern and western side of the project will not have the 1X that has the pop-up option.
Right.
Second floor.
The view component, yes.
I did have an opportunity to meet with the Citrus Club's HOA board to present our new floor plans and elevations and site layout, and it was received very well, primarily because now their viewpoint is the rear of our homes opposed to the side of our homes. So we were pleased with, they were receptive to our modifications.
Question,
Les, what's our side yard setback standard, normal?
It can go as narrow as 5 feet.
It can go as narrow as 5 feet, but when we were discussing this before, what's the norm? I mean, Coderness actually went under the norm, right?
Well, a lot of the gated communities with the golf course, lots, if you will, probably run closer to the 5 to 7 foot side yard setback. They tend to be very narrow and then focusing out towards the golf course as their attention would be. But as you get into more like North La Quinta and those areas, you start seeing wider side yard setbacks in the maybe to 10 foot range. But our standards, minimum standards 5 feet.
5 feet. So from the edge of one house to the edge of the other house would be 10 feet?
Yes.
Okay. And what about the front yard setback?
Front yard is, standard is 20 feet,
Okay.
except if there's a side load garage component, it can go as close as 15 feet.
Okay. And what are your front yard setbacks here?
Currently, our front yard setbacks are 10 feet, but we do have 20 feet driveways.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Our driveways are 20 feet. The front yard element from the house to property line is 10 feet.
So the house protrudes halfway through the yard where the garage,
Okay.
Robert, questions?
I just have comments.
Sure, we'll take comments.
So I appreciate the meeting we had, and in particular I think that the flow is much improved. Obviously, we have a much better feel for it. You have all the backyard facing sitters instead of the side of the homes. There were a few instances of that last time. So it's a major improvement. I think also your organization should be pleased with the improvement that was achieved. Again, thank you for all the metrics that were provided during the meeting as far as comparison in the market, and I'm sure that you will represent those when you come back for the final presentation. So those are my comments. I like the project. I think it's a little bit of a difficult corner there, 50 seconds, It takes some creativity to figure out what to do with it. In particular, when at one point it was approved for this, whatever that was, 235 units and all that, 82 homes. Again, I go back to the lower profile behind the walls, definitely a big plus for the corner. Big plus for you, there will be a road runner at the roundabout. So, it all works out with timing, right? There will be the big road runner there to point people to their homes. Those are my comments. I like the project. I think it has improved tremendously, and I support it.
Thank you very much. And on another note, I do have my marketing advisor here.
Right, is that Lori Lynn?
It is Lori Lynn, so
come on
if you
up.
would like
I've got
to
her
hear.
request to speak, and I didn't know if there was a tag team or if there was a different subject
No.
matter
Perfect.
or element. Welcome.
Thank you. I just wanted to come and explain to you a little bit about how we came up with the recommendations for the product. My role as a market researcher is to assess the market and assess the site. I've been doing this for over 25 years. I actually grew up in the desert. My mom was a teacher in the desert. I'm very familiar with it. And I've done a lot of work in the desert for the builders. I did all the PGA West work for Montera as well as Cal Community, so I'm very active in the community. Originally, when we looked at this site, we had to take into consideration Avenue 52 in Jefferson. We wanted to take into consideration the surrounding land uses of Citrus. And then we wanted to take into consideration how other new home communities had been performing and what they were offering. So that's basically the process that we go through. The first calls that I usually make are brokers who have listings and closings in the citrus to find out what buyers are looking for that are drawn to that area. And the feedback I got from the brokers was that not everybody wants a 10,000 square foot lot anymore. Not everybody wants to live on a golf course anymore. And frankly, not everybody wants a pool in their backyard anymore. And so what's nice about Citrus, or about what Beezer's doing at Watermark, is that they're offering golf cart garages for people who want to have a golfing experience with access to the citrus. They're offering lots that can accommodate a pool if that's what someone wants, and they also offer a common area pool, which addresses that. The other thing that the brokers told us is not everyone wants a large home, that the typical home in demand is kind of 2,300 to 2,500 square feet. Because, again, they don't want the maintenance. We're expecting this to be primarily second home buyers, retirees, and they don't need an extra large home. So we really felt it was important to not deliver kind of what we've seen some other new home builders deliver, which is the $1 million plus homes. We didn't feel like this site was the right location for that. So we've seen that in Griffin Ranch, and we've seen that in Andalusia and some other communities like that. So we really wanted this to be a successful project. We wanted to hit the depth of the market. We really wanted to address what the brokers were hearing from the buyers. And we really feel like Beezer's done a really good job of providing that to the market.
One of the questions Robert asked is specifically about that market research, and it was pitched as second homes. There's also the family element. What exactly is that ideal buyer with that size home? Because that's still a big home for just even a retired couple.
It is still. And I think, too, and maybe that was something that was brought up last time, is that it could potentially appeal to maybe a Southern California mid-40s kind of family buyer that might want to use it as a second home. It has that potential. But really, when we look at the new home market, it's almost 80-90% second home retiree. And in fact, that was one of the challenges we had with PGA West with the product initially, was that it was very two-story element, and we really wanted to get to single-story. And so again, Beezer's provided single-story homes. They have one plan that has a pop-up for a second story, which works well for retiree. You might have visitors coming that, family that can stay on the second floor. But it's going to be primarily Southern California, second home buyers, people in transition to retirement, pre-retirees. We're also going to see it from the Northwest, so Oregon, Washington, we hear a lot about, and then we have the Canadian buyer, assuming that, the dollar exchange works out for them as well, so.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I think after this winter back east, we're going to have to relocate to you.
That's right.
That's true.
That's right.
That's true. Start marketing now.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like, thank you very much, Lori.
You're welcome.
It sounds like we are fairly in agreement that they're on the right track going
Yes.
forward with the feedback that we provided.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, great. I will pull the design trigger then tomorrow, and you will hopefully see us the later May, maybe it'll end up being June, but we'll do our best to get here quickly.
Madam Mayor?
Thank you, Monica.
I have a question for staff, too.
Yes.
Is there anything that we can do to help speed up the process, or anything that you can do either on your side to help, because they've lost a couple of months here already?
Well, a good part of the time, Monica and I were talking before the meeting with her tentative schedule, and they have a lot of work on their part to do to get all their plans ready to go. We know they're coming in. That's a great thing on our end. We can prepare for it, and we've talked about that, and we're going to be ready to do everything we can when that hits to give it high priority attention and get it through the process. We know it. They're anxious, and we understand that it's been a delay for them, and so we're committing the resources to make sure we can respond, and because of, which we can talk about at some other time, but there's a cycle to our process, and right now is a better time for us to dedicate staff to reviews of this matter than it is in the fall. So we're ready to go.
Very good.
Thanks. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you for your time.
Any other comments on this before we close the public hearing? Okay, the public hearing is now closed, and the matter is before the council.
I'll move that we table the continued public hearing.
Second?
There's a motion and second for continuance.
Do we need a specific date?
No, that's why we're tabling it.
No.
Okay.
Motion and second, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Get dizzy now. And with that, I just want to add one more reminder that this Thursday through Sunday is the #1 arts festival in the nation. La Quinta Arts Foundation will be hosting the La Quinta Arts Festival from 10 to 5 right here in the beautiful Civic Center Park. And I encourage you all to take in all that La Quinta has to offer and interact with the artists and the attendees, because you get just a wealth of information, and you hear so much great feedback about the location and the city and everything that's going on. So looking forward to being there. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
I know.
Yes.
Now get back to work.
One of the biggest things, though, is the